Welcome back to the channel, everyone. Welcome to some WWE Draft predictions. The WWE Draft will be happening on the October 11th edition of SmackDown, I believe. It'll be the second week that they are live on Fox. And that will continue over into Monday's Raw. I wanted to sit down for a minute and just give some predictions on how I think this whole thing is going to go. For one, I'm curious how they're going to present it, because there's not exactly authority figures, quote-unquote, for Raw and SmackDown, so I'm curious, maybe they'll do it as, a shoot sort of thing and have Heyman and Bischoff doing it. I know that, they've both said that they don't really want to do that role on television. I know Bischoff has said that, but I'm curious if maybe they'll do that for just this show. If they don't do it that way, I'm not sure how it'll be done, if it'll just be random results, or if there will be any sort of rhyme of reason to it, so we'll see what they do there. The draft, funny enough, was announced on Fox Football on Sunday. All of the Fox telecasts would have had that. I saw it while watching the Steelers-Seahawks game, I believe. So, to kind of go through some of the moves that I think can be made here. For one, and I think this should be the first thing they do, is drafting Becky Lynch to SmackDown. And I don't know how they'll do it with her being the Raw Women's Champion right now. I don't know if she'll drop it before then, or they'll wait until the Hell in a Cell match with her and Sasha. So that might be kind of odd, but with all of the promotion, one of the people in the forefront of the commercials and all that has been Becky Lynch and Roman Reigns. And I think it would be a good move for Becky to be put on SmackDown, and all of the big four women in the division should definitely be moved around and kept fresh in a sense. Brock Lesnar, of course, has to go to SmackDown. He's going to be challenging for the WWE Championship. I would assume they're going to draft him over. I mean, he's probably going to be the champion by then. I would put Braun Strowman on SmackDown, only because they've screwed him up so badly on Raw that he needs a change of scenery. The problem with that is that you're going to have Brock and Braun on the same brand, which is where the downfall of Braun Strowman started. So I'm not sure if you would want to keep them separated. But I do also think it's possible that they could flip the titles around. I don't think they will, but they could per se keep Brock on Raw with the WWE title and then move Seth over with the Universal title. I don't think they'll do that, because I think that Brock Lesnar being on SmackDown is one of the big calling cards for WWE to be able to have a draw on that show. So I think he will be on SmackDown. I would move Cedric Alexander to SmackDown. I think he needs a fresh start after this whole thing with AJ, so I think he could use a restart. I would move, and I kind of just jotted these down, going in order down the roster. I would move Cesaro to NXT/NXT UK. And I don't see why they can't do that, and I'm going to be saying this with a few people, is that those that do not have a spot, those that have no meaning to be on Raw or SmackDown, just move them back to NXT. And I think Cesaro is one of those guys, and he could do some great stuff with Walter. Maybe he could join Imperium, maybe he could go against them. Either way, it'd be awesome. The Revival have to go to SmackDown because they're currently Raw guys holding the SmackDown Tag Team Championships, so that should be a freebie. I would put the Viking Raiders on SmackDown as well. And I would put the Street Profits up to Raw. Because if they're going to be there, hyping things up every week, then let's put them in the ring and have them actually show what they can do. The Authors of Pain, we just saw they had a promo this week. I would put them on Raw. And I think the reason for that is you want to keep the Viking Raiders and AOP on separate brands. I don't think that. I think with the sheer size of them that you would want one on each brand and not to be on the same brand. I would move EC3 back to NXT because they clearly have no plans for them. I would leave all of the OC on Raw. And yeah, I mean, AJ's the champion right now. I would leave Gallows and Anderson over there as well. I would move Rey Mysterio to SmackDown. I think that's where, you can get some of the lapsed fans that they may be trying to bring in with this move to Fox. Rey Mysterio's a familiar name and one that, people remember wrestling on not on Fox, on SmackDown many years ago. So, I think he would be a good move. And, I mentioned Becky Lynch SmackDown, and that brings me to the point of if Becky Lynch goes to SmackDown, are they going to bring Seth Rollins too? Because the whole thing with the last draft was that they didn't want to break up couples. So I'm keeping that in mind here. So if they move Becky to SmackDown, would they move Seth Rollins over too? Not sure. I would think we want to split up Seth and Brock at this point because we've seen that match a bunch. I think it would be a good idea to separate them. So we'll see how that goes. I would also draft Ronda Rousey to SmackDown. Even if she's not able to be there yet, I would still put her on SmackDown. And when she's ready to come back, then we can have the big match with Becky Lynch. And if they leave Becky Lynch on Raw, then I would want Ronda Rousey on Raw. But I would think that it would be a good idea to have both of them on the same brand so we can get that one-on-one match that we actually wanted. So I would put Sasha on Raw and leave Bayley on SmackDown. Unfortunately, splitting them up. Because I think Sasha could be the top of the Raw division and Bayley could be one of the top in the SmackDown division. And it's unfortunate because I do also want to see them together, but really, what more? The thing is, there's only one title on each brand. So, I don't know if them being on separate brands, could they still go after the tag team championships? I would think so. So maybe even with them being separated by brands, they could still have some association with each other in the tag team title matches. I still want to see them just hold all the titles, so I wouldn't mind that. I would move Asuka and Kairi Sane back to NXT because what the hell else are we doing with them? And I do think they would be a lot more appreciated in NXT. I wouldn't keep them as a tag team. I would let Asuka go back to being Asuka. I would move Ember Moon to Raw. She's been ruined on SmackDown. And with the way I have the division going with Becky Lynch being on SmackDown, Bayley being on SmackDown, it would put Ember Moon in a position where she could try to be one of the top girls there. I would split Mandy Rose and Sonya Deville by putting Sonya Deville by herself on Raw. They've already lost the tag team title match like twice. Probably 3 times. Sonya, I think, has the chance to be a big standout star in the women's division. I would like to see her get split away from Mandy and get a chance to really find herself as a single star. I would also move Shayna Baszler to Raw. and that would be after she would drop the title to Candice LeRae on NXT. Shayna has done everything she could possibly do on NXT with the long reigns that she's had as women's champion. I think it's finally time to move her to Raw or SmackDown. I feel like it's been like the last 2 years everyone's been saying that Shayna could be moving. We'll see if that comes true. I would move Johnny Gargano to SmackDown, and I would move Velveteen Dream to Raw. And with both of those guys, Dream just dropping the North American title, I could see them moving him, but I could also see him being one of the top names they have in NXT, so maybe they want to keep him with them being on TV. But as far as Gargano, I don't really think there's much point of him staying in NXT unless they really want to milk one more Gargano versus Ciampa match out of him. But I would move him to SmackDown. I would move all of Aleister Black, Andrade, Zelina Vega, and Charlotte to Raw. And obviously with the relationships intertwined there, they all have to be on the same brand. We saw the return of Rusev. I would put him on Raw. And the big one that I want to talk about here is that I would move Big E or Xavier Woods over to Raw. One of them individually. So, the way I see this is the whole talk is that, we don't want to split up the New Day. The New Day will never be split up. And that's fine. But there needs to be some sort of evolution between the group. And I think you can move one and then keep the tag team with whatever two you have left on SmackDown. And I think the most likely one is Big E that they see as being having a chance to do a singles run. So I would think they would move Big E to Raw and let him have a singles run. And you can keep the New Day together. You don't have to turn Big E heel. You don't have to do any of that. But this group needs some sort of evolution that it hasn't gotten. So I would like to see some sort of change there. If it were me, I would rather Xavier Woods get the singles run. I've talked about him a lot, that I think he could really be a top guy, given the chance. But I think it's more likely they see that in Big E. And I don't disagree. I just also think that Xavier Woods is really good. So, the other thing that comes with this is the reported changes to WWE commentary, as reported by WrestleVotes. The Raw commentary team, post-draft, is going to be made up of Vic Joseph and Dio Madden. Now, I had hardly heard of Dio Madden, but he is apparently Vic Joseph's partner on 205 Live, but he hasn't been there very long. So, with that, it would also be Corey Graves and Michael Cole on SmackDown. The return of the two-man booth, which I could not be more excited about. I don't know if this could be a case of there being an intentional leak that WWE might be feeding bad info there. I just can't see Vic Joseph and Dio Madden being the head of Raw. I could definitely see Vic Joseph being a part of that team, but I don't really see where Dio Madden fits in. I think it could be like Vic Joseph and Tom Phillips, maybe. Because that's the other thing, is that this report is just like foregoing Tom Phillips on either show. And I would think he'd still be a lead announcer on one or the other shows. I do think they will go with Cole and Graves on SmackDown. I think that'll be a good team. But yeah, that's all I got for this one. Those are my predictions for this. I'm interested to see how everything goes with that. We will obviously be here on the channel weeks from now to be able to break all that down. Next week, I'm going to go over my predictions for the AEW debut on TNT, which is just a couple weeks away. I'm also going to debut my AEW Power Rankings, heading 1 week in before TV. And I will try to make that a weekly thing. So, until then, thank you all for watching. Later.